At those times, it was always appropriate to challenge another senator's judgment, but never appropriate to challenge their motive. When you challenge their motive, it's impossible to get to go. All we do today is attack the oppositions of both parties, their motives, not the substance of their argument.
Welcome back to Hardball. That was former Vice President Joe Biden last year speaking at Senator John McCain's funeral, pushing for a return to a time when there was more civility in our politics. The newest 2020 presidential candidate seems to be echoing what voters are thinking. In a new poll from the Georgetown Institute of Politics and Public Service, 9 out of 10 voters say they are frustrated by the uncivil and rude behavior from our politicians. And 4 out of 5 voters believe that the behavior they used to be seen as unacceptable is now accepted as normal behavior. That obviously starts at the top.
We have a bunch of babies running our country, folks. We have a bunch of losers. They're losers. They're babies.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
I think Islam hates us. There's something there that there's a tremendous hatred there.
I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are. They are the enemy of the people. I'm going to bomb the shit out of them. It's true. I don't care. I don't care. They've got to be stopped.
And it's not just the president. The poll shows voters also say wealthy special interests and social media like Facebook and Twitter are very much to blame for the increase in bad behavior in politics. And that's not all. The poll showcased a bizarre contradiction that could have a profound effect on how the 2020 candidates make their case to the American people. And that contradiction is coming up next. Welcome back to Hardball. Former Vice President Joe Biden, now the 20th Democratic candidate to enter the 2020 race. He will make his case to voters as to why he is the best person to beat President Trump. But how do voters want Biden and the other candidates to actually handle themselves in this campaign? A new poll from the Georgetown University Institute of Politics and Public Service finds voters contradict themselves on this issue. It's so interesting. While 4 out of 5 voters say they believe compromise and common ground should be the goal for political leaders, nearly the same number exactly says that they are tired of leaders compromising their values and want them to stand up and fight. Okay, give me a signal here. For more, I'm joined by Mo Alethi, who's Executive Director of the Georgetown Institute of Politics and Public Service, and Michael Steele, a former spokesman for House Speaker John Boehner. Mo, I have to ask you this question. What are we to take from this poll? Compromise or fight for values?
I mean, that's the question. I mean, this is like the toughest tightrope for even the most skilled politician to walk. What's the incentive structure? Is the incentive structure for them to go out there and act good, right? To be civil to one another? Or is it to stand up and fight? And can you blend the two? The interesting thing I thought about this poll.
Has anybody done that? I see Buttigieg. I would say there's lanes. They're not left, right. They're moderate, reasonable behavior, and we don't hate the other side. And the other one is we hate the other side. Let's be honest about it. A lot of people say Trump is evil. He must be fought, any way we can beat him. And then you have Buttigieg, who's sort of more moderate in his voice. I would say Kamala Harris a bit more aggressive. Bernie is fundamentally more aggressive because he has an absolutely different ideology than the president. But who's putting it together?
And Cory Booker is doing hugs and love. And
he is more like that. I mean, he's in that lane.
The differences are less about ideology than differences in tactics in terms of the best way to take on Trump. Do you fight fire with fire?
Amy
or
Klobuchar.
Do you try and return
Amy Klobuchar seems to be trying to be nice.
In the more sober lane. Yeah, absolutely.
What's she called? The woman next door?
Right. Look, what this poll clearly shows is that there's really 4 main actors here who have the power to clean up their act. 1, Republican political leaders. 2, Democratic political leaders. 3, the media. And number 4, the voters. And people oftentimes neglect the role of the voters in this. Media, political leaders, all culpable, and voters blame them. But voters also need to take responsibility, and this contradiction shows why. They need to take responsibility. Political leaders need to police their own, but voters kind of need to police them too. And as long as they're sending this mixed message, we're going to continue, I think, to have this confused state.
Well, I think in the media, fine, go after me, but I will say this. I know every time I walk down the street, people don't say, you're so nice to politicians, we love it. They say, I like it when you push them.
Yeah.
And I don't do it enough, which is say, nice try, give me the answer.
Well, and
answer the question. We're supposed to be tough.
And we're continuing to live with the fallout of 2008 and both parties' bases feeling that they had been betrayed by their leaders in Washington. It hasn't gotten better since then. And so you have this tearing apart of the fabric of our lives and our communities and our nation.
Well, here's the latest on the poll. Your poll at Georgetown also found that voters were very pessimistic about where the country could be heading. When asked where they would rank the political division in this country, voters believed on average that we were nearly 3/4 of the way to being at the edge of a civil war. Your poll asked 0 to 100. How close are we to an actual fighting Battle of Gettysburg and Bull Run kind of fighting?
0 is no political division. 100 is edge of civil war. And a majority of the country says we are nearly 3/4 of the way there. That's incredibly pessimistic. Now, our poll is conducted.
But who are the sides? The Trumpites and the anti-Trumpites, right?
Yeah, I don't know who it is, right? I mean, is it rural, urban? Is it racial? I mean, the divisions in our country are more than just ideological right now. So and this transcends it all. And you see this level of pessimism amongst Democrats, Republicans, and independents. It's interesting. The polls showed that the most pessimistic were older voters. Younger voters a little less pessimistic. But that might be because they haven't known it any other way than this before.
What I've noticed different than growing up is that my dad would have buddies of his, and they'd play golf once a week. They're regular, what do they call them, cloth coat Republicans. They weren't rich. He was, but his friends were all Democrats. They never talked politics. He never talked politics, and yet they lived in the same world. Today, you know how it works in Washington. You know how it works. You go to a party, you assume one party's there. Democratic parties, Republican parties. And people would actually say, I don't know anybody that voted for Trump. They actually say that kind of stuff. Or I don't know anybody that doesn't like Trump. These are different worlds.
And that's where we are, because from an objective point of view, like in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, the country was far more divided than it is today on a number of important issues. But people weren't drenched in politics the same way then. It is so pervasive because of the 24-hour cable news television, because of the Facebook. Like, I can't go on Facebook to check who's my friend's birthdays without seeing a screed about politics. It's everywhere, and it dominates everything.
Mitch Landry said something at the Gridiron last year. He said, I don't pick my friends on the basis of politics. What? In this town, you do.
Well, that's now a controversial comment. Vice President Biden has gotten in trouble for saying these things.
But it goes beyond this town.
Listen, we're going to continue this conversation because it's about this year. How rough should you be? How tough should you be? And how nice occasionally should you be? Occasionally. Mo Alethe, thank you so much. I'm on your board, by the way. Thank you for the Georgetown board. I always wanted a Georgetown connection.
Mike's our former fellow of ours.
I want to be part. I'd like to be part of that Georgetown elite community. Thank you, Michael Steele. Up next. And good values community. Anyway, Nelson Mandela's words from a quarter century ago resonate in today's America. You're watching Hardball.